Hey, well, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Today we continue our webinar series with the topic, the top 5 Cisco Webex integrations for your everyday tools and applications. I'm your host, Joe Wachna, and I'd like you to welcome our speaker today from Cisco, Mr. Michael McGarry. Michael is a senior product manager at Cisco Collaboration with over 20 years of experience in video conferencing and collaboration. Michael leads the Webex and telepresence scheduling, calendar, directory integrations, and new innovations group. Now, before we begin, just a few housekeeping items to take care of. Audio lines are in listen-only mode. There is one main chat panel. Please use that for any issues, general comments, and we'll try to address those there. We'll try to make time for a Q&A at the end of the webcast. Mike will attempt to answer your questions, time permitting, at that point. This webcast is being recorded. A replay and slide deck should be made available in just a few short days. Now, without further ado, here's Michael to kick off the top 5 Cisco Webex integrations for your everyday tools and applications.
Excellent. Thanks, Joe. So again, Michael McGarry, and I'm going to go through a couple different integrations here that I'm very happy to show you. We have been working here at Cisco inside the Webex business unit on some of these for several years now. And what we've been finding is that people aren't using these as much as we kind of had built them to be used. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to go through some of those right now. If you look at the slides on your screen, you can ask questions and answers. I do have a couple people that might be answering some of those questions, and if not, we'll follow up on a FAQ afterwards. So please ask your Q&A in the Q&A panel. So let's go to what we have been building here inside of Webex has been collaboration tools to be able to integrate to other applications that you're already using today. And those are done through integrations. So you may easily be using the Microsoft Office suite. I certainly do use the Office suite. We used PowerPoint to build the presentation here. So we actually use a lot of these tools internally here at Cisco, and likely you are as well. I will also say that we also support Google. Quite a few of our customers are starting to use Google G Suite, and we equally use Google and integrate with calendaring and scheduling systems with Google as well. And I'm going to go through and demonstrate some of these for you today. We believe that if we take and add collaboration tools on top of the tools that you're already using, then 1 plus 1 actually equals more than that, which is more than 2 and 3. All right, so that's what we believe. We also build tools just as an informational point. We build tools all the way from the pocket to the boardroom, as I like to talk about it, and some of our executives like to talk about it. So we build devices that range anywhere from large room systems, big, huge 65-inch screens. We have actually a new Webex board, which is 80 inches, which is just this huge, massive thing. I've actually seen it, played around with it in one of our offices in New York, and it is really large, and it is a pleasure to actually use as a whiteboard. So we make all these devices all the way down to just applications, applications that I'm going to show you some of them today. I'm not going to show you the mobile applications, but we do have mobile applications as well. We'll be looking mostly at desktop clients and web clients. Okay, so that's what we do here at Cisco Webex. So what I'd like to do is if we could start with the first poll question, and please answer the question here that will be popping up. When is the last time that you joined a Webex meeting? Now, obviously you're joining a Webex Event Center meeting right now, so previous to this time, when was the last time that you actually joined a Webex meeting? So I will give you another 40 seconds or so to answer that question. Should be relatively easy, hopefully, and then we'll move on. So I think, Joe, the poll has ended, and we might actually be able to see the results.
Yeah, let's see here. I'm looking at the numbers right now. 69% have used it a week ago, 13% more than a month, We have 2% about 12 months ago, and about 6% said, hey, I've never used this before. See if I can push that out to everybody. There you go. That's kind of what they came out as.
Excellent. Okay, well, that's good. I'm glad people are using it within the last week. That seems to be the majority use case, which is always great to see. So thank you for using our technology, and I certainly appreciate that, and I'm sure that you do too, because we're building technologies to help better your lives. All right, so let's move on. I'm going to spend just a moment or two and go over the Webex Teams application. So if you give me just a second, I'm going to bring up a live demonstration here, and I'm going to share my secondary screen. All right, so what I'd like to do is I'd like to go over the Webex Teams application. We also have the Webex Meetings application as well. We believe that since 69% of you have responded that you've used Webex Meetings in the past week, then probably you are very familiar with the Webex Meetings client, but many people are not as familiar with the Webex Teams client. The Webex Teams client is an add-on client that you can certainly use. In fact, you can go download it for free and sign up with your own personal account if you'd like, or your own company account, and it's free of charge to use. Of course, if you want extra features, then those require a Webex license of various different types. We're not going to go through those details, but I'd like to actually go over the Webex Teams client in general. We have a number of things that are in the client. We handle messaging, and this is persistent messaging. We also have the capability of making calls. By default, you can automatically dial anybody that you're chatting with on a one-to-one call. In addition, if you happen to have added some additional functionality like our calling solution, Cisco Unified Communications Manager, or the Webex calling option, then you can use this client as your soft client to make calls and receive calls on PSTN phone numbers. We also have the capability of using Whiteboard. We can schedule with the client. I'll show that a lot more in detail in just a moment. You can, of course, chat with people within your org, and also you can invite people from outside of your company or your organization. You can share files, and we're going to go through some details on integrating into Microsoft OneDrive so that you can share files from OneDrive. And, of course, you can present and share your desktop or an application as well. All of that is within this client, and we'll go through a couple bits of this. I'm going to put up a graphic just so that you can also see. So if you flip back and forth between the slides and my live demonstration here, you can actually see the overview. So we have a navigation panel on the left-hand side here that shows me teams that I might be a member of. We can do calling, of course, and then this is where you see all of your upcoming meetings. And then in the home section is where we have all the messaging. And from here, we have a search area where I can search, for instance, and find people that are named Mary. And then I can see people that have been active long ago or not. And I can also see messages with Mary in the name. Just doesn't happen to have any. And I can also see files with Mary. Of course, there isn't any right now. So that's the left-hand navigation and a little bit of the search and filters. We can filter for just people, so I can only see the people that I've been chatting with. If I just cancel out here, then I can see all of the messages that I've been a part of. You also see on the left-hand side here, so if I click in on one of these one-on-ones, we're actually going to show you a little bit more details here in just a little bit too. But there's a little bit of a section up here. You can tap the I button. You can mute notifications and so on. You can find out what meeting capabilities exist. You can even favorite the space. Now, there's a big section over here. It's called, we sometimes refer to it as the waffle. I think the waffle is a little bit of a wrong word to use. I'm sure I'm going to get chastised later for this. But this is the space balls or the space activities. So if I tap on this, then I can see all of the activities. And this is a new function that we just added recently. So if Daniel happened to have been on, I can tap screen share directly, And when I screen share, I don't actually have to be connected to a video or audio session. I'm just sharing my screen as an out-of-band screen share. So we'll go into the scheduling bit in just a little bit as well. Okay, so that's the overview a little bit. Now you also notice one little thing down here. I happen to have a room system sitting over next to me, and it's emitting some ultrasonic pairing frequencies. And so it's actually telling my client over here that it's in close proximity and that it's authenticated with it. And if I actually wanted to make calls, I can actually use it to join the calls. And I can also wirelessly share my screen directly to that room system. This is what we refer to as proximity sharing. So all you have to do is be in close proximity, have a laptop out or an iPad or a tablet or even a phone with the Webex Teams or the Meetings application, and you can proximity pair with it, and then you can also share directly on the screen. I'm not going to share that. That's probably another webinar for another day, but I thought I'd give you at least an overview of what is going on within this application. Okay, so now that said, what we're going to do is we're going to go into a little bit more details, and the live demo that we're going to do is we're going to go to the Google Calendar. So we'll start with Google Calendar, and then we'll end with Microsoft Outlook and using Exchange Online. So I'm going to drag a browser over here. Now, this is my Google Calendar. It's a different organization, so this is just for our testing and demonstration purposes. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up a scheduled meeting here. So I'm just going to drag just like a normal Google meeting, and I will put the integrations webinar meeting. And then I'm going to tap more options. Now I can actually add some rooms. So since I have that conference room over here, I'm going to go ahead and include it. Now I previously scheduled meetings in this, so it suggests that I should probably use this Gershwin conference room. So I'll just go ahead and add it. And then I'm going to add some additional contacts. So let me add my boss from this org, which is Mary. And then I'm going to add maybe somebody else. And I saw Daniel earlier, but let's just add those people. Okay, so now I've got a couple people that I scheduled, all normal stuff for scheduling a meeting in Google Calendar. And now I have this new thing that we've added. And how we've added this is we've built with Google an add-in framework that allows us to be able to extend the user interface of Google itself. So I don't have to necessarily always use a Chrome browser. I could be using Chrome. I could be using Firefox, Safari, even the Microsoft Edge client on my Mac, or I could use Internet Explorer on Windows. It does not matter which web browser I happen to be using. It also works with any of the Android applications, so Android Calendar, as well as even Google Calendar on my iPad and my iPhone. So I am going to do a drop-down box here. And this is where I can add Webex Meeting. So in the back end, not on this client, in the back end, we go grab some information, stuff it back in. Now, what you'll notice is that we don't actually put it in the description field. The description field gets all mucked up with text and things. We actually directly write into an object that then shows up on the actual Google Calendar interface. And now we can actually see Join Webex directly. You can see the meeting number as well as the password if you needed to know that particular thing, or you can just tap the Join Webex meeting right here. We also provided a SIP address as well for any video dialed calls, so that's the video address field. And we also have phone numbers, so if I wanted to dial in via a phone number alone, and then there's my access code for phone numbers. Okay, all of that is built directly in. Now, I'm going to go ahead and schedule this meeting, so I will go ahead and tap the save and send the meeting. Now, that's well and good. I've got an actual scheduled meeting. It's an ephemeral meeting, though. So that's a little bit different than a meeting that we might want to chat beforehand. But we'll talk about that in just a second. So at the same time that I did that, it also wrote an event into our meetings list. So now if I go to the meetings list on my Webex Teams client, I can see that there's an upcoming meeting. It's called Integrations Webinar Meeting. If I tap on it, I can see that I'm the organizer, and then there's several people that have not responded yet. Now, as the booking owner, I can actually start that meeting right now. I can do that from the Webex Teams client. I could also do that from the Webex Meetings client, so that is not a problem either which way you want to do it. Or you could just tap on the Join Webex Meeting directly from the pop-out card. Okay? So now that I've had that scheduled meeting, that's well and good. I probably actually want to maybe set up another meeting, and this time I'm going to want to collaborate ahead of time. And so what we're going to talk about now is creating a space in Webex Teams to be able to collaborate ahead of time and then also join the meeting. So let's go ahead and create that. So we'll call this the Integrations Webinar, and we'll call this Follow-Up Sessions. So what we'll do is we'll add some guests here. So I'll add the same people maybe, and actually do the more options. It's easier if I see it the full screen here. Now, instead of typing, or instead of using the drop-down box on the Add Conference, I'm just going to type @me, because we have back-end integrations that can occur without even having to install anything at all. So I'm going to use @me, and I will go ahead and add the room too, might as well, right? And I'll also add Mary, and let's just go ahead and save this meeting. Okay? So now I have a second meeting in my Google Calendar, and I'm going to open up my Teams client. It takes just a little bit of time to process all that, but you'll notice that there's now a new meeting that just showed up. You'll also notice that there's this blue thing. It's called Integrations Webinar Follow-Up Sessions. If I tap over here on my home, that's the new space that got created. We dropped a little calendar widget in it so that you can actually see the same meeting. But if I also went over to my meetings list again and tapped on the meeting, I can press message and I jump directly to the space. Now, here's where I might want to share a file or something. So here is a place we can discuss information before the meeting. And I could easily just add a file. So let's add, let's not do it that way. Let's drop this file in, and I'll just save that file. Of course, I happen to use a very, very large file. That was probably not a good idea. But anyway, so now I can share files ahead of time. We can collaborate ahead of time before the actual scheduled meeting. When the actual scheduled meeting occurs, a one button to push, or OBTP as we like to call it, will actually pop up on my screen. Now, what we'll see is we'll start to see these pop up here in just a minute when these meetings start to occur. But in the meantime, we're going to continue on talking about it. Now, my room system over here, since I did schedule it, it will actually pop up a join button as well. So 5 minutes to the scheduled start time, a join button will pop up, and it will also show if I have upcoming meetings as well directly on the screen. This is really great when you want to pop your head in a conference room like I do when I'm visiting San Jose, and I can see that this meeting room is going to be scheduled in a meeting that's coming up, and I probably shouldn't try to squat and use the conference room. Okay? All right, so let's move on. What if I wanted to take and now schedule another meeting next week as a follow-up to this follow-up session? So this is where it becomes really interesting. We already have all the people in this space that we want to meet with. So if I tap on the Activities section again, and I tap on the Schedule button, I can see that this is a meeting that's upcoming. You can see that this is the meeting that I had scheduled already, but I can schedule a follow-up meeting. So from this interface, I can type Schedule a Meeting. Now, what's actually going to happen is it's going to open up the calendar application from Google. And dropped it on my other screen. But you'll notice it already pre-populated all the information directly in my calendar. And now I can actually save this as a follow-up meeting. We're going to move on because we don't have a whole lot of time. So let's move on. So what we've talked about is we've talked about scheduling a meeting from Google Calendar. We also talked about using the Webex add-in that's easily added. All you have to do is go over here to the little plus or have your administrator enable it for your entire Google domain. But you can tap the plus and then just add Cisco Webex right here. And then do an authentication once to Webex, and then it will remember that authentication in the future. Okay, all that's well and good, and you'll also notice on the slides that mobile application does show up in the Android client really well, and it also provides the same information that you would see when we looked earlier in this little pop-out card. Okay? So, let's start with the poll question number 2. We've talked about Google Calendar, but what I'd like to know is what do you use to schedule meetings? So we've got a number of choices here. This gives me just a minute or two to set up the next demonstration. So give me just a moment to set up the next demo. I think that the poll is done, Joe?
Overwhelmingly, 80% are using Microsoft Outlook Desktop, with everyone else kind of an also ran at around 10%. So you got 10% using Microsoft Office Outlook Mobile, Microsoft Outlook Web App, another 10% using G Suite, and about 15% saying they use iPhone, iPad, calendar app. 1% saying they use the Android, and 5% saying other, but the majority, 80%, Microsoft Outlook Desktop.
Okay, that's about on par with what I would have presumed as well. So it's probably right up the alley of what we expect. It's very close to what we build tools for too. So that's great. But we do equally build tools for Google. As you've seen, we've had some deep integrations into Google Calendar, and we also have some other deep integrations coming for Google Drive integration. We'll talk about sharing files here after I go through Outlook, but yeah, thank you so much for the information from everybody. Okay, let's move on. Now we're going to talk about scheduling from Outlook, which is 80% of the population apparently. So all good. And I'm going to drag my actual calendar over here. So sometimes people get really nervous when I drag my real clients over here that I use internally all the time. But I am going to go ahead and I'm going to set my Do Not Disturb so that we don't get constantly barraged. So I'll set my Do Not Disturb because people message me all the time. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to schedule a meeting directly from Outlook. Now, what we are presenting is an ability to use scheduling with ease by just turning on the hybrid calendar service. And this is provided by Webex. If you already have a Webex contract, then you already are entitled to enable this. It's no extra charge. If you happen to be using Office 365 or Google, then you don't have to install anything. You just have to do some configurations. We will have some follow-up videos that we will send you right after this session, and you'll be able to see all the details on how to do it. There's 60 seconds, and you can be up and running. I've configured it in less than 60 seconds before. In fact, the video is real time, and we actually go through setting up the actual Office 365 integration, and it is less than 60 seconds. So let's go ahead and schedule a meeting, though. So from my calendar itself, I'm just going to tap on Create a New Meeting. And I'm going to tap out a few people. So I will include my favorite marketing person on the call, Melita, and I will also include Joe because he's been so helpful on this event. And we'll talk about this being the integrations webinar again. And now, in the location field, you can, of course, schedule meeting rooms, and I could add meeting rooms here too. But I'm going to just type a simple keyword. This is what we call it, a location keyword, and I'm going to type @Webex. Now, by and large, this is what we're actually recommending people to do. If you just use any calendar client that's connected to Exchange, Office 365, or even Google, then you can just use @Webex. So we're going to set up a scheduled meeting here. It's going to go for only 10 minutes, and I'm going to press the send button. So the moment that I press the send button, it's going to actually schedule the meeting, obviously within Microsoft Exchange Online. I happen to be using Exchange Online. And if I give it just about 20 seconds or so, then if I didn't even need to give it 20 seconds, I reopened it back up, automatically decorated my personal room information into the meeting. Now, here's the thing. If I go look at my Teams client, so this is my actual Teams client for my actual account here at Cisco, and I'm going to tap on the meetings, then you can see right here that an integrations webinar got created. Now, what's really interesting here, I'm going to close this meeting down. Since I'm the actual booking owner of this meeting, do you see that little pencil icon up at the upper right-hand corner? Directly from the Webex Teams client, I can tap Edit, and it will open up the Outlook calendared event, and this works on Mac as well as Windows, and it will open up the actual meeting. So that's the actual meeting that I just scheduled. So even if I'm just using the Webex Teams client and I want to go make a modification to the meeting, I can tap on that little pencil icon and edit the meeting directly. So that's well and good. Like I talked about earlier, that's an easy way to do things. However, we're going to go one more step. So we have built a new tool, and I'll create another integrations webinar, and I will put, this is the Outlook add-in. And so I'm going to double click on that. Now I'll invite some additional people, and I might want to invite somebody that works for me. I'll invite another person, and I'll invite Melita, and I will invite Joe. Okay, all good. Now, I'm not going to add anything location. We have an additional functionality that we just released, or we will be releasing very shortly, and we will also be including some additional features in the near future too. So here we have a new button that we can add to our add-in bar, and I can tap Add Webex Meeting. What will happen is that we will do this on the client itself, go out, grab some information, stuff it into the description field, and if I send this invitation, we will be able to see it on the Webex Teams client as well, just as easily. And in the future, if we tapped on the settings gear icon, which I'll bring up here in just a moment, then we'll be able to actually set up all of the parameters for that particular meeting. Now, at the moment, we're just doing adding either the meeting, a Webex scheduled meeting, or a personal room. But in the near future, you will be able to have other options. For instance, to be able to turn on and off the entry and exit tones, or be able to change a different password, and so on, all within this little flyout card within the Outlook client. Now, not only does it work on the Outlook desktop clients, but all of this also works with, and give me just a second to open that up, it also works with the web app as well. So I have a logged in web version of Outlook, and nope, that's the Google, sorry. I thought I had that open here. Yes, I do. Here it is. So that's that same meetings here. So we'll tap integrations and tap the more options. And from here, there's a dot, 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 ellipsis, and you'll see the exact same thing, Webex preferences and add Webex meeting. And if I tap add Webex meeting, then it will automatically populate the Webex join details right down here below. Now, I'm not going to go ahead and schedule this. I'll go ahead and discard this because I want to show one more thing. Okay, all good. So we have a simple way of typing at Webex. Real easy. Use any client as long as it's connected to your calendar, and we've turned on the hybrid calendar, then we can decorate the information with no problems and schedule the meeting. We have a button that you can add as an Office add-in that is directly in the client, and then we can support not just personal room, but we can also support scheduled Webex meetings. And I'm going to show you one more thing. So if I wanted to, just like I had done in Google, to set up a scheduled meeting and be able to collaborate on it ahead of time, that's where this gets really good. So now, if I wanted to type here, we're going to do the webinar integrations, webinar. And we'll add some people here. So I'll include Andrew. Let's use Andrew's actual Cisco email. And I'll include Karen. I'll include Molita. And I will also include Joe. And since those are people, I'm going to just type ignore, just so that they know that they don't need to actually join the meeting. And now I'm going to type more options. And from here, all I have to do is type at meet. Now, at meet, we could also use at Webex : space. That is a very specific parameter to pass, but I'm just going to type at meet. And what at meet means here inside of Cisco is that we want to create a space to collaborate ahead of time. Now, I don't need 15 minutes ahead, so I'll put 5, and I'll go ahead and hit send. Now I'm going to bring up my Webex Teams client again. And what we will see in just a moment is a new meeting also getting popped up here. Notice, by the way, that we see the other meetings that I had scheduled just a moment ago. Of course, I did not pray to the demo gods this morning, so it may be that it's just showing up a little bit later, so we're going to give it just a moment or two more. In the meantime, what I'd like to talk about next, while we're waiting for that to show up, is the fact that all of these meetings can actually be joined with one button to push. We've provided a simple green join button across every client that we make. Even the devices that we make that were registered either to our on-prem solution, CUCM or Expressway, or our cloud solution. So if we wanted to register endpoints directly to Webex, we provide join buttons across everything. So if we look at the slide that's showing up on the screen, then what you'll see is you'll see join buttons or start buttons that are across every device that we make, all the way down to even the Apple iOS devices. We've worked with Apple on providing a little join button directly. Their user interface is a red handset icon because the user interface in Calendar is red, but they actually show Webex Meet or Webex Teams meeting directly there, and you can tap and it will directly launch the Webex Meetings mobile app if you happen to be on an iPhone. We also do the same thing in Android, so if you do actually bring up, like I showed you earlier, that we have the pop-out card, you can tap on Join Webex, opens up the Webex Meetings application directly, and we see all of that working quite well together. Okay, so let's go beyond this. drag a few things off the screen here, and then I will show the next part. So, let's get ready for poll question number 3, which will be the segue into us seeing enterprise content management. So if you would please pop up the poll there. And the question really is all around, how do you share files in your organization? Do you share them with Microsoft OneDrive or SharePoint Online? Do you use Google Drive? Do you use Box, Dropbox? Or do you just share files with sending emails back and forth? Some people do that. I know that some people still use file shares. That seems to be less and less common, but I think people still do that. And if you happen to use some other solution, please let us know which one that is.
Well, your winner is Box. About 33% say they use Box, followed by 22% email. And then we're splitting Microsoft OneDrive and then some type of file server as well. But at least for this one, Box seems to be the majority.
That's interesting. I kind of expected the Dropbox to see a little bit higher, but what surprises me is email. But that is what it is, right? So let's show a couple different things here in just a moment on how we can actually facilitate maybe reducing the amount of emails back and forth. Okay, so let's go right back into it. Now, I did want to just finish up what we started last time, which was we created a space, right? We scheduled a meeting, we created a space, and now we can collaborate ahead of time. So I'm going to bring my Teams client back over here again, and we created that meeting title was Webinar Integrations Ignore, so that people would ignore it, and I think they probably did. But I can see that Melita has actually seen that this space exists, and so has Joe. So, hey guys, let's share some information before the actual meeting so we can be more productive in the short time we have real time together. Okay, that's the goal of every meeting, right? So we can all be prepared. And it looks like Karen also just read my message too. So from here, I'm actually going to do the next thing that we have on the agenda, which is how can I share files without having to email files back and forth. And what ends up happening, I'm not sure if you guys heard me or not, but what ends up happening is that the email system ends up getting overrun with files. So if I had a 10 meg file that I was wanting to share, and then Melita edited the file and sent it back to me, and then I forwarded it to Joe, then now we have like at least 3 copies floating around in the email system somewhere. Nobody goes back and deletes emails, so we basically have a ton of just files just floating everywhere. And we're also not sure which version we're using, right? So to resolve that, the thing that we added into the Webex Teams client is not only to be able to just share a file directly, but also to be able to integrate to OneDrive. So what I have done here in my Webex Teams client is I've integrated this with OneDrive. So if I go to Preferences, and underneath Preferences, there is this Accounts tab. From here, I can click the plus, and you can see that I've actually already added OneDrive for Business using my own corporate account here. And so now my little paperclip has a new drop-down. Not only upload from my computer exists, but also share from OneDrive or SharePoint Online. So from here, I'm going to actually do that. And since I had logged out earlier and logged back in, it's asking me to log in again. But that is not a problem. Okay, so my OneDrive is going to pop up here in just a moment. And I'm going to go into this Webex Hybrid Services, and I've got this little Word document that I'm going to actually share with all the people in this particular space. So I'm going to click Open, and I'm also going to allow editing. So this is so that I can edit this Word document with Melita, Joe, and Karen, and anybody else that I happen to add to the space later. So I'm going to go ahead and apply that. And we can edit this document real time before the meeting where we will discuss. Okay, that's great, well and good. Now I dropped OneDrive meta file information in here. It's actually still stored in Microsoft OneDrive. It is not stored in Webex Teams. The only thing that's stored in Webex Teams is an encrypted metadata that's using the end-to-end encryption that we have with all messaging inside of the Webex Teams client. What are we having for lunch, man? I would really like to know, Joe. I know that you can hear me real time, so I'm not going to type. But from here, I can tap directly on that file, and I'll actually open up the Word online version, and I can actually edit this right now in real time. Now, if other people had also clicked on it, I can actually see that Melita is typing "Hi, Michael" right directly into the Word document. So now we can use the OneDrive with Word integration with OneDrive directly from the Webex Teams client, and we only had to actually save one version of this file, and we can all co-edit this file, and now we can use OneDrive as the versioning control system for this file. This also, of course, works with PowerPoint and Excel, so all those documents also work quite well in OneDrive, and I can also share PDFs and any other file that's in OneDrive as well. Okay, so this is great, and how about if we add more details on OBTP join? Okay, so that's well and good. So that is OneDrive integration and also SharePoint Online. Now, in addition to having the capability of doing this, we're going to be introducing very soon the capability of also using Google Drive. And the Google Drive will not only be for the Webex Teams application, it'll function almost identical as this, but will also work with the Webex Meetings client as well. So we're also working on that too. Okay, so in summary, what we have done today is we've shown how you can schedule a meeting using Google Calendar. You can schedule different types of meetings. You can use a very simple tool of @Webex or @Meet. And you can also use the add-ins that we've built as well for Google. We've also gone through Outlook and how you can schedule meetings with either the Outlook Fit client or the Outlook web app integration. We also have the add-in that you can use, so you can not only just use @Webex, of course, with any calendar client, but for Outlook clients, you can use the add-in. So there's a button that shows up that you can click on the Add Webex. And also, you can follow up with scheduled meetings. So I've had this meeting here, and it's all great, well and good. We've gone through even the summary. We've gone through the enterprise content management to share files with Microsoft OneDrive. But I also want to set up a scheduled follow-up meeting from this webinar. So right from here, I can tap on the schedule, and I can schedule a follow-up meeting. Now, what's actually happening here is we're going to open up Outlook. We're going to pop all the details directly into the meeting invitation. And it already pre-populated all the join details. And even better yet, I didn't have to type all the people in that space's names. It all just popped right up here, and now I can schedule a follow-up session. So everything all works really easily, well and good, all integrated together. So I think we have maybe a few minutes left for some time for Q&A. So I think, Joe, do we want to open up the Q&A?
Yep. Yeah, Michael, we had a couple questions that popped in. One that came in a few minutes ago, maybe 10, 15 minutes ago, before you started talking about some of the sharing capabilities. Someone wanted to ask about the whole @Meet space you were talking about. They were kind of curious about, hey, where is that actually located? Where does that come from? Does it come from a third party? Is it like some kind of chat application? How does that @Meet space actually work?
Yeah, certainly. Great question. So @Meet is just a keyword. And we can also use the same functionality as a different keyword of @Webex:\space. But @Meet, what it actually does is it creates a space. So we have an integration that you can enable called Hybrid Calendar Service. And if you enable the hybrid calendar service, then what happens is that we now can receive any new meeting updates, and we have a listener that's in the cloud that listens for anything that you're typing one of these keywords. These keywords are at Webex or at Meet, and there's some other parameters as well as that you can pass, but those are the by and large, the generic ones of at Webex or at Meet. At Meet creates a Webex Teams space. So it took just a little bit more processing time than I was willing to wait for on screen. That's why we went on to the poll question and then came back, and then we actually saw it had already worked, right? So at Meet, what it actually does is it created this space that we see here. So you see that the actual service created this brand new space because I, as an end user, scheduled a meeting and just typed at Meet in the location field. Then we were able to do follow-up conversations, and we can also do follow-up scheduled meetings as well directly from this space. Does that answer the question, Joe, you think?
Yeah, definitely. You know, another one that popped in that was a little bit more broad was basically, hey, are there other WebEx integrations with third-party tools and apps that you haven't talked about that we should be aware of, or what would be coming down the road or something like that?
Well, I did mention a couple integrations that we have that are coming very soon, and that is the Google Drive integration for WebEx meetings, as well as the Google Drive integration for WebEx Teams. Beyond that, I can't really discuss any more roadmap in an open forum, in a public forum like this. But we do have other integrations, so if you happen to have been using the Microsoft Teams application, you can integrate a tab and a bot integration with the Teams application using WebEx. So you can schedule WebEx meetings directly from the Microsoft Teams application. We also have some other integrations with a number of e-learning management systems. They're all detailed out. We have all documentation on either help.webex.com, or if you just go to the webex.com website, you can see all the different integrations that we have. We also have deeper integrations, and we've got hundreds of them. So if you go to apphub.webex.com, then you'll actually be able to see all of the integrations that we have for WebEx Teams as well as WebEx Meetings. The WebEx Teams integrations are bot integrations or back-end integrations. We've got a number of them. Hundreds of them are sitting out there. So does that answer, do you think that answers that question?
I definitely think it did. We probably have time for one more question. This one came in when you were, I don't know, it was kind of maybe about 25 minutes ago or so. You were referring to the one button, big green button to push type of thing. Someone wanted to know, what do they need to do to enable that, or is that just a standard thing that they see?
Yeah, so what we recommend is that you add the hybrid calendar service. In the hybrid calendar service, we support Exchange on-premises, many versions of Microsoft Exchange on-premises. We also support Office 365 worldwide instance. We will be very shortly supporting Office 365 Germany as well. And we also support Google. Google is a global service. There is only one instance of Google. So we support all of those different calendar systems in the back end, direct integrations. And all you need to do is go and configure them. We have a slide that was the previous slide that will be also as a follow-up item that we'll send out in a document to everybody that's joined this webinar. And you can go to the cisco.com/go/hybrid-services-calendar, and it goes through all the details of how you need to configure that. I will tell you that, like I said earlier, the Office 365 and Google are really easy. It's 60 seconds, no more than 5 minutes to configure. The Exchange on-prem does require a little bit more work, but we do support Exchange on-prem too, and we do support a lot of users on either one of those platforms. We have hundreds of thousands of users on the Office 365, for instance, with no problems to support.
Fantastic. Well, I think that kind of does it for the questions. We're kind of approaching the top of the hour. There was a handful of others that came in there, but they may be just a little bit too detailed. So probably you can address them offline or in kind of like a blog recap that we'll be doing because we have to let everyone know about some of these other items that you mentioned and links and resources. So we'll be sending that out as well. So I think that kind of does it. I want to say thanks, Michael, definitely for the presentation. This was fantastic.
You're certainly welcome, Joe.
Yeah, so really, everyone, on behalf of Michael, the entire Cisco team, I want to thank you for your attendance and your participation today, especially with all the poll questions. I would watch your inbox in the coming days for a complete recap, which will include probably a recording of this. The slides, we'll make that available, and we'll try to adjust some of the Q&A that was put out there as well so everyone can see that. So again, on behalf of Michael and everyone at Cisco, I want to say thanks a lot for attending and joining, and hopefully we'll see you at our next webcast. Thanks, everybody. This concludes our webinar.